Hi everyone, and welcome to the course on how to build strategic guidance for your team. Have you ever found yourself leading a team where it feels like you're just running on the hamster wheel, just spinning and spinning with no real purpose or understanding why? Does working like this produce the best results and outcomes for your organization and customers? Of course not. The best results come out of motivated teams that are engaged in their work. Unfortunately, today only 32% of employees are actually engaged, which is down 4% over the last 2 years. And with the onset of remote work, people are finding it more difficult than ever before to see how their work connects to the larger goals of their organization. Teams today are distributed around the world, and in order for them to feel connected with where their organization is going and what their customers desire, we as leaders need to become clearer than ever before on what we're trying to accomplish. We need a shared understanding. Based on the latest research from Atlassian, creating a shared understanding, that feeling where everyone on the team understands the mission, purpose, and what we need to get done to deliver on our goals, is critical to building high-performing, effective teams. In order to improve your team's shared understanding, we must provide clarity on the problem they're trying to solve, what success looks like, and who will benefit from it. We call this strategic guidance. Pulling from Atlassian's team playbook, the freely available set of practices that fuel Atlassian's teamwork culture, strategic guidance represents a collection of 4 of these plays focused on helping you create a compelling strategy and guide your team towards achieving their goals. The plays include vision creation, focused on getting your team on the same page by painting an inspiring picture of the future of the work that your team is building. Goals, signals, and measures, focused on moving teams from a fixed outputs-driven approach to a flexible outcomes-driven mindset. Customer journey mapping, focused on helping your team visualize how customers experience your products or services and how they feel along the way. And finally, the DAISY, a decision-making tool that will help your teams quickly make clear, transparent decisions. Strategic guidance will help if your team is newly formed without any clear goals or guidance, established but lacks a shared understanding of what you're trying to do, is part of an organization that is having to change its priorities and you need to keep up. Or perhaps your team simply feels the lack of connection to your customer and that greater why. Whether a delivery team leader or a member of the executive team, whatever your leadership role, strategic guidance will help you unlock your team and organization's potential to reach that high-performing level. And that's what we're about to learn how to do. During the next 4 videos in this course, you'll learn about the plays that make up strategic guidance, how to run each play, as well as pick up some expert facilitation tips and tricks. This course was designed by Atlassian's top modern work experts, where here they share their experience and favorite practices for helping your teams and organizations align and collaborate on work. After this course, you'll be able to create a shared understanding on your team around your team's vision and goals. Improve your team's effectiveness at visualizing the customer experience and making group decisions. And ultimately, develop some expert facilitation techniques for those plays focused on strategic guidance. So instead of waiting for someone else to provide us with some strategic guidance, let's learn to dish it out ourselves. Check out the next video to continue your learning. In this video, you're going to learn what is the vision creation play, pre-work necessary to run the play, how to facilitate the play, how to follow up after running the play, and expert facilitation tips and tricks from real Atlassians. Have you heard rumblings from your team that they just really don't understand what they're working on or why they're doing it? Or based on the work your team's produced, does it seem like you're not really meeting the customer needs? Or do you find you and your team all feel like you're kind of just doing a bunch of tasks? You're not doing amazing work. Well, if you're nodding your head to any of these statements, my guess is you don't have a compelling vision statement. The vision creation play is designed to help you paint a picture for your team of what the future looks like for your products and customers. Designed to help build a shared understanding, the play is all about helping you understand where you're going so you can understand what you're going to build. That way, you don't just build things, you build the right things. Ideally run when a new team forms or new project starts, the vision creation play is foundational to ensuring that your teams have a proper level of strategic guidance when they get started with work. The most important part of the vision creation play is the pre-work, because much of the play is focused on having your team react and provide feedback to the information you present to them. As a leader, you own the vision, and yes, I mean you, but you need to make sure that your team is bought into where you're trying to go. Vision creation is a very collaborative process with both async and sync elements involved. So I usually recommend using a digital tool when running this play. I hear that the Trello template out there for vision creation is awesome. So let's get started. Let's say we're on a project to build the next generation VR headset. Easy, right? So we all probably have an idea of what that vision could be, but what we need to do is we need to figure out what that vision should be for our organization. In order to do this, we need to go gather a bunch of information from our organization to help us better understand the context of the problem. Information like company mission, company values, business outcomes, and any expectations for your teams to achieve and by when, as well as customer personas you'll be focused on. Using the information you've gathered, it's time to actually construct the goal you want to achieve. Use the following format to help guide you in that process. It is a specific period in time in the future, and when we achieve our goal, what does that look like? Easy, right? Now, let me just emphasize the importance of creating that time frame as well as that end state on your goal. The reason we do this is it helps create guardrails around where we're going. That way we don't just leave it open-ended and not really have like a place we're shooting for. So with your goal in hand, you can go ahead and add it to your Trello board, as well as add columns for each of the personas. And with that in place, it's now time to actually invite our teams in. What you should do now is set up 2 30-minute meetings with your teams to review this and actually get them engaged in the vision creation process. It's now time to invite your team into the vision creation process. Whether you're doing it in person or remote, the focus of this next part is bringing your team into the process and having them provide feedback. They're the ones that are going to be executing on this vision, so you want to make sure they're bought in. During the first session, you're going to review the goal with your team and then ask them to picture the impact of that goal on those targeted personas. Let's say your goal is to be the preferred VR headset provider by the year 2030. Awesome. Well, what is the impact of that on each of those personas? Have your team spend 10 to 15 minutes just kind of brainstorming on each one of those persona columns. What's the impact? Have them ask questions like, how do they feel about it? What senses is that persona experiencing? What changes in that persona's life? After 15 minutes, then go around the room and have everyone share what they added to the board, their thoughts. Clarify any questions that people have. Now, this will actually then close out that first session. But before you leave that session, tell your team that you're going to leave the board open for another 24 hours for them to continue to provide feedback. That asynchronous feedback is really good to help people who may not be fully thinking about it yet to bring out some ideas in the long term. So leave it open for an extra 24 hours. After 24 hours, take all those ideas and consolidate them into 3 to 5 themes. Make sure you add a description to describe what that theme means. This way you can present this back to the team. Now note, don't go over 5 themes because too many themes will make your vision too broad and it will lose its value. Now for the second session. So you're going to be meeting with your team and your goal here is to present those 3 to 5 themes to them. Give them 10 minutes or so to review the themes, add questions to the cards on the Trello board, and then spend some time talking through those questions. Now remember, the goal here is not to get consensus from everyone that these are the 3 to 5 themes. As the leader, you own the vision, but your goal is to get as much information as possible in order to create the most compelling vision possible. But at the end of the day, it's still you that makes that decision. Now that you receive feedback on the themes from your teams, you can start consolidating all that information to a final polished document. I typically like to use Confluence for that. That way I can share it out with my team and the rest of my organization. And that's it. Nothing more to that. At this point, you'll have created that initial vision to help drive the direction of your team and organization. And here's the thing. Vision creation is just that. It's just the first step in that long journey towards building something amazing. But I argue that it is the most critical step of the entire journey because it's this step that dictates the direction of each future step along the way.
When establishing your goal, don't get too caught up on feeling that you have to gather all the extra information. Trust what you know and where you want to go. If you know what your goal is, then run with it. If you want to put a spin on the exercise, turn it into a storytelling game. Visions are designed to inspire, just like a good story. So for each persona, have your team create a small story around how the goal impacts them. If people still struggle to come up with the details, have them close their eyes and use their 5 senses when imagining the impact on a persona. What do they hear? What do they feel? What do they see, smell, or taste? Before the theme review session ends, it's also valuable to have the team vote on the top 3 themes that resonate most with them. This will help you prioritize which themes are most important to the team.
So if you're trying to do something big, if you're trying to inspire people to think differently, maybe moving from that outputs-focused mindset to an outcomes-driven mindset, then providing your team with an inspiring vision is the fastest and easiest way to move forward in this direction. So what's stopping you? In this video, you're going to learn what is the goals, signals, and measures play, pre-work necessary to run the play, how to facilitate the play, how to follow up after running the play, as well as learn expert facilitation tips and tricks from real Atlassians. Have you ever heard the phrase outcomes over outputs? Now, all teams deliver and build things, right? You could be a software team building features, you could be a marketing team building marketing plans, or maybe you're an HR team that's building an onboarding checklist. All these things are things we produce, but does the producing of these things mean that we've added value? Do they mean we've hit a goal? Nope. Producing a thing does not mean that we've hit the intended outcome or goal state. Instead, teams need to shift their way of thinking. They need to focus more on the outcomes they're trying to deliver and let that determine what they're going to build. They need to move to start focusing on the goals, signals, and measures of their work. The goals, signals, and measures play is designed to help you identify the goal you're trying to achieve, how you want to visualize the outcome by creating signals to track your progress, as well as target measured changes in user behavior or opinion at the end of the day. Whether you're starting a new project or kicking off the next fiscal year, running this play will help ensure your team doesn't just produce something, but that they produce something that actually makes a dent in that goal that you have. To ensure you get the most value out of the goals, signals, and measures play, I recommend you go understand your team's larger purpose, that why statement. And a good artifact to do this with is going to be your team vision statement. Now, if you don't have a vision statement, you're in luck. The vision creation play in the team playbook is a great play to help you identify and crystallize on what that vision is. We don't want to find ourselves setting goals for outcomes that we just don't understand, right? When setting your goals, I typically recommend targeting a time frame of 6 to 12 months. Any less than that, and you're going to find that your signals and measures might be too granular. You won't be able to learn a lot from that. Any longer than that, you're going to find your signals and measures are too broad, and you won't be able to learn from that either. Goals, signals, and measures is an incredibly collaborative brainstorming session, so I typically recommend using a tool like Confluence whiteboards to hold the exercise. Now, if you're all in person, you can certainly use sticky notes and Sharpies. I know those have a tender place in my heart, but at the end of the day, you need to remember that you're going to eventually need to translate that data into a digital tool so you can share it with others. Whatever the case, whatever thing you choose to use, just make sure that your team vision and any guardrails are visible on the tool so that your team can see it when they get into the session. It's time to sit down and run the goals, signals, and measures play. To kick things off, I typically like to share a little bit on the vision of what we're trying to do and any guardrails or timeline implications to it. Let's say our project is to build the next generation VR headset, and we have a goal to be the preferred headset provider by the year 2030. Ambitious, am I right? I typically leave around 5 to 10 minutes for us to kind of talk about this vision, ask any questions, provide clarification, all in order to ensure that the team is on the same page before we move into the next step in the process. Now with some shared context, we can now start identifying the goals that we want to pursue as a team. Have your team spend the next 15 minutes or so brainstorming what goals they would like to see us pursue over the next 6 to 12 months. Now, once those goals have been identified, then have your team prioritize the list and identify the top 1 to 3 goals that the team should pursue. The biggest mistake that I see at this point in the play is that teams will look at all the goals they created and say, wow, these are all great. We should pursue them all. The problem here is that if you want to have a meaningful outcome, you have to identify those outcomes that are most meaningful to your project. With our top goals identified, we can now go ahead and identify the signals associated with each goal. Now, signals are a form of leading indicator, meaning when we see certain patterns, it signals to us whether we're moving in the right or wrong direction. A great example for this would be seeing an increase in the number of downloads for a new app we have for our VR headset. It's not a specific target, but it's a trend in the right direction. Speaking of a specific target, it's now time to move into what I'd argue is the most critical part of the goal, signals, and measures play, and that is spending some time to identify the specific set of measurable outcomes that we believe indicate successful completion of a goal. Now, these measures should represent something for us where if we didn't hit them, they would tell us that maybe that goal isn't worth pursuing anymore. Things like the amount of sales we see in a specific market. This part of the play can take upwards to 30 minutes to complete because it can be very difficult to identify the right measures as a team. My biggest recommendation here is to avoid those binary measures, those yes, no measures, or those did, didn't measures. And now that we're at the end of the play, our team should have at most 3 goals that we're looking to pursue over the next 6 to 12 months, signals and measures on each that tell us whether or not we're moving in the right direction and what success looks like at the end of the day. And with all this in hand, our teams can now go start figuring out what can we deliver to actually make an impact on those goals. With our goals, signals, and measures established, it's now time to start doing the real work and time to start tracking our progress towards our goals. If you use a tool like Atlas for goal tracking, be sure to enter your goals, signals, and measures into the tool so that way you can keep your stakeholders up to date in terms of where things are at. To help track status, I typically recommend having some sort of check-in process where maybe once a month, your team gets together to talk about updates to the signals as well as the measures. Now, if you're new to this idea of outcomes over outputs, I usually recommend a more frequent check-in. Weekly is ideal. And if after 3 to 6 months you find maybe your goals, your signals, and or your measures are just not the right ones, like they're not moving in the direction that you actually decide you need to go in, don't be afraid to redo the goals, signals, and measures play to ensure that your team is realigned around where you're trying to go. You got to avoid that sunk cost fallacy.
When you create goals, be sure to create outcome-based goals versus output-based goals. They sound kind of similar. Well, you can tell the difference by looking at your goal. If it's about delivering a specific thing, then it's an output-based goal. If it's about hitting a particular target, then it's an outcome-based goal. To help with the prioritization process, I like to use dot voting. I give everyone 3 votes that they can add to the brainstormed list of goals, however they want. They can distribute them or put them all on one. After everyone has applied their 3 votes, we see which goals have the highest number. Don't get caught up on making the wording perfect on the goals, signals, and measures. Many times this play can run long because we obsess over using the correct language. As long as the essence is there and specific measures are identified, then just be okay with good enough so you can experiment.
If your team is struggling to understand what their outcomes need to be, running the goals, signals, and measures play is a fantastic way to provide the strategic guidance necessary to help your teams understand where they're trying to go and what they're trying to build.
In this video, you're gonna learn what is the customer journey mapping play, pre-work necessary to run the play, how to facilitate the play, how to follow up after running the play, and expert facilitation tips and tricks from Atlassians. It is always a good idea to put yourself in your customer's shoes. How do they experience your products? Instead of just looking at a single feature, you need to see the whole picture. Your customers are taking a journey through your products. They start to solve a problem or want to get a task done. What are their experiences on their journey? What are their pain points on the way to their goals? With the play Customer Journey Mapping, you first find out how your customers navigate your product or services and map it to emotions they might have with this experience. Find out how to improve the user experience from beginning to end and not just in between. Pick a single persona and journey to make it as realistic as possible. It's getting too broad if you look at more than one scenario. You can schedule another meeting to look at more personas or multiple journeys. Tell all participants that you're just talking about the specific persona and journey so no one comes with the wrong expectations. If you run this play in person, you can do it on a board with sticky notes. For a remote session, we recommend using a whiteboard tool where everyone can collaboratively add their thoughts. All right, let's run the play. Introduce the persona and share some background information like, today we're going to focus on Lisa. Lisa is a team lead that wants to buy the new Atlassian virtual reality headset in our online shop. We'll follow her journey from finding the product to making the order. After that, the team should talk about the backstory. What does Lisa expect from a VR set? What's her budget? Why does she need the VR set? Everything you can think of to make the journey as realistic as possible. It's essential for mapping out Lisa's journey and not your own. Now, you can map the journey. Use the sticky notes to document how your customer navigates your product or service. Add a sticky note for each action. It helps if you split the mapping area into different zones. In our example, you could have browsing the store, adding to the shopping cart, log in or create an account, and checkout. Be an advocate for the persona. Don't talk about internal system and processes. The next step is mapping the pain points. Where does the persona feel frustration? Where are they confused? What are the bottlenecks, or what are possible places in the journey where the customer could abandon the journey entirely? Now, plot the persona sentiment to map out the emotional journey of your customer. Using emojis makes it actually more fun. Now, analyze the big picture. Talk about any surprises you found and how to improve the experience. At the end, document your findings on a Confluence page and show your journey to customers to get a real-life check. Do they agree? Share the page with the team that should know about it and create a plan for how to solve the identified pain points. Now, let's hear some real-world tips from other Atlassians.
Journey maps should result in truthful narratives, not fairy tales. Start with gathering any existing research. This can help support or validate your journey map. Not all journey maps look the same, and that's okay. The elements chosen to illustrate the journey should be focused on the map's purpose, who will be using it, and what helps to provide the most truthful and impactful narrative.
If you want to understand better how your customer feels using your product or service, run the journey map play. You'll identify areas to improve the journey. The journey map is just the first but important step to making your customers love your products. In this video, you're gonna learn what is the DAISY play, pre-work necessary to run the play, how to facilitate the play, how to follow up after running the play, and expert facilitation tips and tricks from Atlassians. Getting to decisions in a team, especially across teams, can take some time. Does everyone have the correct information? What are the consequences and risks when making the decision? What options do we have? Are we aware of side effects? And most importantly, who's making the final decision? Making timely decisions is slowing down a lot of teams. The Daisy Play can help with all of this. And one of the best things is that you document the decisions for everyone who needs to be informed. A Daisy is probably not the right play to decide whether to order sushi or sandwiches for team lunch, but more for the decisions that are hard to reverse, like pricing for your product. Okay, let's first talk about the strange name. It's an acronym for driver, approver, contributor, and informs. We will dive into these roles in a sec. So, before you start a Daisy, create a document for everyone to collaborate on. Use your Confluence template. Add as much information as possible. Research that you did, background information, why this is an important decision, the impact this decision has, and who's part of the decision team. Share this document and let people contribute to it. You can run the play via video conferencing or in person. If you do it in person, share the document on a screen via projector. Kick the meeting off by making sure everyone has read the document. If some people haven't seen it, give them time to read through the doc so everyone is on the same page. Now, let's start and talk about who will be the driver. It's the one driving the team to a decision. Write down the name of the person into the document. Next row, the approver. It's essential that this is a single person and not a team of people. Approvers are typical leaders with decision-making authority. Contributors. These people are often subject matter experts that will inform the decision process. Contributors can provide information to help make the decision. And let's talk about the last role, the informed. This group doesn't take an active part in the decision making. Often their work changes depending on the decision, so they need to be informed of the outcome. All right, you've put together the team, great. Now you can create the plan. Talk about how to get the needed information with the group. What do you expect from each contributor to add? When do you need the decision? What background information can be helpful? Talk about possible options. In this example from our product team at Atlassian, we had to decide on a product name for our new virtual reality headset. You can see the different options we've considered. We discussed each option's pros and cons and provided additional data. You don't have to fill it out during the meeting, but it's good to talk about the different options within the group. Leave the meeting with a plan for next steps and a due date. Actually, most of the work is done asynchronously after the meeting. Discussions can take place on the Confluence page as well as taking the final decision. If needed, you can meet with the group again to make the decision. The driver should run the decision by the approver and document it, especially how and why it was reached. Afterwards, you can share the doc with the informed group to give them all the information. In our example, we decided on the name Atlassian VR, and everyone at Atlassian can read why we've chosen that name. Now, let's hear some tips and tricks for running a Daisy from other Atlassians.
Make your decision transparent. Don't lock down the Confluence page or Google Docs. People might disagree with what you decided, but they can read about the thinking process and why you decided this way. There's no need to implement Daisy across your company in one go. Daisy isn't suitable for all project types. For example, strategic decisions or projects that require a free flow of ideas aren't always the best fit for a Daisy. So instead of causing panic and backlash, apply Daisy to your most well-defined projects first.
Making transparent and document decisions is something that a lot of teams are actually struggling with. The Daisy Play helps involve all the people that need to be part of the decision making and brings everyone on the same page, literally.